transgesterically based and red pilled.
Trans
Yeah.
gestures. That's
Because
incredible. Where did he, like, what context was that? Like, where was he saying this?
he was talking about the reinstating trans people into the military. So he's like, and my move to reinstate trans jesters into the military. I mean transgender.
At least he caught himself this time. Usually that doesn't really
Oh.
happen.
Well, that's the other classic, rich kids and black kids, or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. That's an old one, though.
That's so good. That's an oldie but gold.
Yeah, that one's brilliant.
He's just secretly based. He just so fucking.
He's
His just cognitive abilities are so
his
declined.
cognitive
He's being
decline, yeah.
controlled.
Yeah,
his handlers are woke.
he's the definition of controlled opposition to himself.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, like Biden is just fucked.
Man, it might be Trump v. Biden again. That's crazy.
Hope not.
Be nice if they both just...
It would be nice if they debated and they were like the candidates, and then they both died on the campaign trail.
That'd be so
fucking-
dreamy.
They just fucking.
Then
seized
RFK
up.
and DeSantis is actually what you get. It's like, oh, thank God, some two, like, somewhat reasonable human beings.
Because it would be funny to watch Biden and Trump debate.
Yeah,
But
you want that. You want
don't
the
want
show, but you don't want
You don't want
the
them
actual...
on the ticket, but you do want them on the fucking travel circuit. Fucking imagine Biden trying to debate Trump. Like Biden was an embarrassment in his debates against Trump in 2020, and like he's even
God, they have
worse
to be...
now.
They're just going to be... Yeah. All right. Well, with that fun intro, we're live. And today we're going to be talking about the various generations. I guess the general perceptions of them, like their contributions or lack thereof to general society, and potentially like how things might play out. It's going to be a little bit less structured than our other podcasts, though those can't claim too much structure there. But yeah, it's just more of a free-form conversation about it because it's not a lot of research and not a lot of hard research exists for this type of topic. So,
Oh no, I've seen very hard research on the old medium.com.
I was going to
where
say,
they tell me that Gen Z is the most conservative generation yet, and
What?
a recommended article that Gen Z is the most liberal generation yet. And of course, they've both got tons of very verifiable statistics to back that information up. Nonsense.
Yeah, by statistics they did some complete, probably
They
half-assed
polled
survey from
35
like
people.
from some random, completely biased sample that they just had access to, and then they called it a day.
That's what
Great.
I love. It's like we polled CNN audience
Yeah.
online for Gen Z, and we found out they were quite liberal.
That's wild, guys.
who would have thought?
We polled Tucker Carlson's kids, and we found that they're quite conservative. Man, weird. Sample can really change things.
Newsmax went out on the street and they interviewed people, and every one of the interviews they showed on Newsmax, they were super conservative.
Yeah. I guess I think I was kind of wanting to do this topic just because my inspiration for it was just watching various people interact with technology and failing or succeeding. And I think this is kind of a common view at this point, is like you have the boomers who are like technologically not very literate because they were too old when technology came out. And then you have like Gen X to millennials that are like varying degrees of fairly technologically savvy. And then you have Gen Z, which I guess the theory would be, oh, well, they were born and baptized in technology. They should be, very literate. Seems that they're less literate because a lot of their technology is like very...
They're interacting with the simplistic versions.
Well, they're using like the shiny, iOS.
They know how to use the iPhone app.
Well, the
Yeah,
best way I saw it described was that they're using technology that has been designed and simplified to cater to boomers who are tech illiterate. So then Gen Z is now learning on devices that are designed for the tech illiterate and therefore not having to develop tech literacy.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
sounds about right.
and so when they go to interact with like technology stuff that is a bit more problematic and not as user friendly and not as like polished and easy to get along with, they're just failing. And one simple example that I've personally witnessed, but also it's like quoted a lot of times, like file systems, because like phones and that kind of thing that Gen Z is used to doesn't really use file systems, so they don't really know how to navigate file systems. But in a workplace, file systems are pretty ubiquitous still. Like you're gonna have to be able to, a lot of jobs will have like some sort of shared drive, and then there's multiple layers of like file system or folder systems that you have to like navigate through and find stuff, and they just like can't do that. Which
I take this as a personal attack as well, because my biggest problem with like Apple anything is that it obfuscates the file system and makes it a pain to find and use, in preference of all these icons everywhere. And I just like things to be clean until I pull up the file system, and then I can navigate through what I want.
yeah, and so like a lot of Gen Z or whatever will just be used to using icons, touchscreen icons, and for computer stuff they'll just put everything on the desktop. So like classic,
Just like
like
boomers.
yeah, like a classic meme will just be like a monitor screen just loaded, like there's no more they quote unquote ran out of space. Like I've seen multiple stories of people like Gen Z age kind of young kids like telling their parents or whatever that they ran out of space on their iPad or whatever, and it's because there's no more space for icons on their home screen, and then so they can't make any more icons, so then they're quote unquote out of space, and they don't know how to like solve that. So obviously that's problematic when you're in a workplace where you can't just it doesn't seem very efficient to just load everything up on your desktop and like hope to find it by and then being frozen up when you run out of space on your desktop and just not knowing what to do.
There's actually also a little bit of objective data on that one that I've seen, because the UK, being one of those governments that's always trying to be hip down with the kids, was bringing tech courses into their grade school system. And I think it was around 2010 they realized they had to start revising their curriculum to dumb it down, because the students going into the tech courses didn't have the same level of tech literacy as when the tech courses were designed.
Jesus.
So depending on the age, that would have been people born probably around like the late 90s, early 2000s, right? Like they're starting to notice that those kids are less literate than the ones born in the mid and early 90s or into the 80s.
Well, I remember growing up with Windows 3, and you didn't have the what do you even call it? Like the operating system was just command lines, and you entered words. You didn't have like a home screen or icons to double click, or even like you had a folder system, but you didn't have a visual representation of the folder system. You entered the folder system by knowing the names of the subfolders. It's just archaic.
I
mean, I think at the time it was archaic, but it was like most people would have no idea what to do presented with that if they were young.
Yeah, that's like DOS. Even I guess that I have some interesting stories about that, because some of the government stuff that I worked with was still DOS based, so it looked like that, and like you could definitely tell that the more kind of like the younger people that were having to deal with DOS, like it was absolutely a tragedy for them. Like they just
mind numbing.
Yeah, like handling like your icon and file system was bad enough for some of the really young people that I like started with, but then like going to DOS was they just couldn't do it. Like, and it was interesting because we had a couple different programs, and you could kind of get around like not using the DOS system very much. Like it was faster. It was way faster because it was just the the lack of an overlay on it meant that it was like
You just put in the
way more
command, right?
responsive. Yeah, well, and just like the system would run way faster because the other program had some sort of, I can't remember, the Microsoft system was basically like one giant macro on top that would navigate through the DOS based system and give you like a traditional visual representation that people would, a UI that was more modern, but it was way slower. And so a lot of people would just like not bother with the DOS system and just like wait the 5 minutes between clicks on when they were doing things that would have been.
Hey man, it's
That's such a
government. That's what
throwback.
you're expected to do. Sit around most of the day. I see no
So,
problem
yeah.
with this.
There still is things running on DOS for sure. Because even now, like government jobs that I'm in right now, I see other people they're running DOS systems for things, and I don't know when it'll be replaced. But
As
I
somebody
don't
who
think
has
it's like
just gone
imminent.
through a full ERP system upgrade at his company, I can see why they don't want to upgrade because holy shit, is it a disaster. It is so much work and you break everything. So I can see, like, have a little bit more sympathy now for, government not switching over from DOS.
Well, I mean, Canadian government had great success with their pay system upgrade, so I can
Yeah,
think
I heard there was
no,
even some good old suicides from that one, so.
you just snowball that success into a tech
Into
win,
an
and then you go.
actual like full on like a complete like operating system overhaul.
I think that would be one really strong argument in terms of like just starting a new country, just breaking off from Canada or whatever, breaking off from the US. Is just like you get to design your computer systems from the ground up.
Yeah.
It's like thank God. Not like
Well, are we
trapped.
just gonna wait though? Because right now that still requires human programmers. Give it a year or two, and then you can just tell, "Hey, Chat GPT, make me a government computer program."
Yeah, but unfortunately, I think like even there, like it might misunderstand the instructions, and then
Make it a DOS.
well, it'll make it like it'll make it broken, and the people using it won't know because they're just not literate enough to like tech literate enough to understand the problems, and then just like I don't have faith in the technology section, the IT section of any government. It's just like such a under skilled portion of any government because like the private sector is so much better paid.
Yeah,
Or
everybody
I don't
just
know.
comes out there.
Maybe there's some European countries or something that
So,
pay their government IT workers competitively, but Americans and Canadians definitely don't.
well, then you just tell Chat GPT to make you a private corporation program, and you have lied to Chat GPT, and then you use it for the government of your new country.
ChatGPT, pretend you're Dan or whatever. Make a government or make a corporation. I don't know. It's
Are
crazy how like just some generations, I guess, like it's not all generational obviously, but like it
Oh
is.
yeah, you're definitely gonna get some of the older generation. Like, again, we're speaking in generalities, of
Well, the
course.
thing I find weirdest about generation is that it definitely seems to. I'm sure it's the same in America, but in Canada, like the more rural you get, it's like you regress in generations. Because, like, I grew up with like very little internet access as a child, and like a DOS computer somehow. Like even now, that seems anachronistic. But it's like I'm not old enough that I should have experienced that. And dial-up internet, like when I did have internet first. But just being rural kind of insulates you from the developments of the world. I think less so now than it used to, though.
Yeah, good old Elon Musk. He's cleaning all that up with internet access for all.
I definitely think Canada was like probably 5 or 10 years behind Americans in terms of like generational shift. Like I think that's probably something like somewhat of a good rule of thumb is like if you look at American generations in terms of like when things were introduced, you just like shifted a few years behind for Canadians. And then I think you have to add a multiplier on that for rural for sure for Canada and probably America, right? Like I'm sure
Yeah.
there's parts of America like rural America that are just like
Appalachia.
10, 20 years behind everything else, right? Like they're just yeah, I think recently things have accelerated all around. Like cell phones, I think were really like a big
Cell phones
leveler.
and social media, like
Yeah, like they leveled everything. Like I think it's so much harder for there to be like with like barriers, I guess, or like that kind of like geographic isolation where it actually makes an impact in terms of like adoption of technology and stuff. Like I bet if you went into like 95% of American rural cities and Canadian rural places, like everyone has a cell phone, right? Like
yeah.
a smartphone too, right?
Well,
Like
I was saying like even in the rural areas, a more rural area like I'm in, it's probably about 1 in 20 people doesn't have a smartphone now, which is probably a higher rate than the city. But then when you think about it, cities have lots of homeless people. But then again, when you think about it, homeless people have smartphones. So
Yeah, I know I see the guys. I see the homeless guys near my place that are charging up with their external battery pack.
yeah,
but
it's
I think it's a threshold thing for like the culture shift, right? Like you don't need not 100%. You just need to get it like if 50
but
or 70 or whatever that percentage is. Once you get it over that, then like the whole culture shifts towards like being more or less like this same, right?
well, I'd say it's like there's maybe just like a core of Luddites in the rural area that lag behind in spite of the progression of everybody else. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and I'm sure there's a few in the city. It's just you don't see them as much, and they're probably per capita a lot lower percentage of the population, right?
but yeah, the thing is like everybody's going to be seeing. Well, that's another good thing with generations because everyone's going to be seeing similar sort of videos to the rest of their generation. But like boomers in America and Canada are going to be seeing it on Facebook. Then Gen X and millennials will be seeing it on Instagram. Gen Z will be seeing it on TikTok. But like they'll all be finding the same sorts of things, videos interesting and sharing them all with each other. And I think it's really homogenized a lot of the generational stuff for sure. But that social media seems to break down by generation pretty heavily.
Well, I think it's like because you have the bubbles, right? The internet bubbles, but I think you're right in terms of like just like basic exposure to like certain concepts or certain like practice, like cultural practices or whatever. I think most people have like a better idea of like the basic things going on. I would say with the internet,
Yeah.
like
So like I get exposure to TikTok from my more Zoomer inclined family members. And they've taken to now downloading the TikToks so they can share them without people having TikTok to receive them. And I just think that's such a funny development because TikTok was trying to gate people away from being able to watch TikTok without having the app.
so people do. Yeah, the other
Yeah,
obviously the other
they'll
like
remove that function where you can't download an app.
the other obvious common thing you see a lot of the time is like uh, just,
Oh no, Hubbard's is dying.
Oh, I thought I was dying.
No,
That's a
it's
close one.
Hubbard's.
oh, it's me.
Yeah, you just went robo for a bit there. Last
Oh,
week
it's just
tried. Oh,
Oh no.
did you die again?
maybe. Let's see here.
You sound fine there.
I'm starting to think there's somebody who doesn't want us to talk about generations.
The all zero viewers that we get.
Yeah.
Shut it down.
They just know that the second this actually hits public, it's just gonna explode, and Joe Rogan will look like a guy screaming into the streets compared to the popularity of this podcast.
I was just saying that yeah, this will be on from YouTube. It cuts from YouTube, sent over to TikTok, and then TikToks are captured and sent over to Instagram, and they
Oh my god,
down
it'll be like the Reddit stuff where it's like people just like screenshot and then keep screenshotting and re-uploading. Then you wind up with just a garbled mess.
well, it's just like yeah, like I don't have TikTok. I've never downloaded it, never will, but I still like see a lot of TikToks because they're posted on other social media.
Yeah. There's a lot of the watermarking that I see shared within family and friend chats.
Well, and obviously content. There's a lot of content creators that like cross post to everything, right?
Yeah,
It's like, why not?
YouTube Shorts.
I
Not a
follow
lot of
some
effort.
boomer content creators that do YouTube shorts but don't make TikToks. And at least one of them was forced to make a TikTok because of somebody just impersonating them and posting the YouTube shorts on TikTok. I'm like, this is the struggle of the modern world. You can't not be on TikTok because otherwise someone will pretend to be you on TikTok.
Yeah,
and
just
make
wait till
short
it's
form
banned.
content elsewhere.
Then how will all the Zoomers get their fix?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we're due for a platform shift away from TikTok. Like it's
That's
TikTok's
what I was thinking, but it almost feels like we're at peak visual content with TikTok. Like, what's
Yeah, it seems like it's like straight to the base of the brainstem, and I don't know how much more you can refine for that.
Man, TikTok does not work for me, and I'm still upset about it because I've read things about how good their algorithm is and how addictive it is and how it finds you a niche and it's like absolutely the best videos ever. So I dedicated a full day one day to just going through TikTok and trying to find videos I like to get the algorithm pumping, and nothing. Like it is not like fundamentally the content style does not work for me. I was very disappointed because I was pretty hyped up after reading
Well,
the
you're
article
going to
about
be
how
a
good the
boomer
algorithm
then.
was.
Bring this
Yeah,
back
I'm a
to
YouTube
to
guy.
generational talk. It's because you're a boomer.
Minutes, except it's only 5 in real life because if you're a boomer, you watch on 1x, and if you're a millennial, you watch on 2x. I think I'm millennial / Gen Z. I don't even know.
I don't know.
Where's the cutoff?
Yeah, I don't
Somewhere
really
around
know
there.
if Gen Z likes the 2X. That's not some research I did for this cast.
I can't watch YouTube on 1x. That's all
I
I
know.
know.
Most of it's pretty tough.
I was thinking about that. I feel like there's going to be a similar like distortion of how intelligent we think people are because the faster you talk, the more intelligent people think you are. And since
We
Yep.
all
watch
watch
it.
YouTube on 2x.
everyone watches everything on 2x, you're like, oh man, these podcasters are so smart because they talk really fast. It's like, no, you just bed them up.
That's
2x.
actually
They're not that-
that's something I actually noticed. I was like, I was
intelligence, yeah.
listening to, I can't remember which podcast it was, but it was like a more intellectual type one. It's like, Jesus, like how does this guy, like, he's so quick on his feet, and then I realized, like, yeah, no shit, like I'm an idiot. Like, Jesus.
I can't handle podcasts at 2x. I don't know if it's a visual thing or what, but like when I see somebody talking, I have it at 2x. But I think YouTube, and it's my opinion that the meta for like the YouTube cadence is slow enough that boomers watch it at 1x, but it's comfortable to watch 2x for someone like me. You can also hack YouTube fairly easily by going into the see, I don't even know the words for these because I'm not actually tech literate. But you know, when you're like F12 on a web page to look at the inspect element sort of stuff, you can change your multiplier to 8x or whatever number you want and watch YouTube hyper fast.
I don't think I'll be doing that. I don't
I
know,
don't
like
know why I had to do that. It was weird.
Since it was necessary.
Yeah, I had to do this at one point, and I can't recall why. I think it was because I had to find a part of a video, and the video was 10 hours long, but I knew what it looked like. But I couldn't scroll with the bar because it was 10 hours long.
Oh,
Bar scrolling
God,
went
yeah,
too
yeah.
fast.
That's actually a
Yeah.
bit of a problem.
YouTube maxes out videos at 12 hours, I believe. And so a bunch of live streamers will do like multi-part things that are 12 hours long. And then when you're debating what happened in those live streams, yeah, you can get in the weeds and have to find something. in a
Oh,
12-hour
well, that's
video.
where we're just way off the track of generational thing, but like that's definitely something where I could see AI being extremely helpful, where it can just go through and find it. Like you just type in
Yeah,
like
but that
find.
is a generational thing. Boomers just wouldn't understand the great debates that occur over these YouTube videos. Or actually, boomers probably would.
Well, it
Boomers are
depends. I
probably
think
the people
some
doing these debates.
depends on the
Debating
debates.
what?
Well, just
Yeah.
like, you know, like having really intense arguments over YouTube videos, like YouTube comment sections and such.
Oh, I'm sure
I
they're
think
familiar
I
with
think this is
flame wars.
generationally consistent. I feel like there's not really much of a difference between generations in terms of how irate and over the top they get over online content.
Yeah. Well, look
I
at
always
Facebook. It's
find
all
YouTube
just a
to
bunch
be
of
more vitriolic
Then what?
than like Twitter or
I don't think
Oh,
you're looking in
man.
the right
I don't
places.
know. I feel like Twitter's got to be like close to the top, but it's like it's literally the amount of vitriol you see is like directly proportional to how much moderation is done because like I feel like the amount of hate is like the same. It's just like
Yeah, how
some
I don't
much is
know. I
getting
always find
stripped out?
Twitter like trolly. I don't know. The people on YouTube just seem way more personal and intense about everything. But
To be fair, watch like 80% financial and investing content on YouTube, and 99% of the comments are spam bot comments to
Yeah.
scam people. It's like, I've had a very tough year in investing, but luckily I was able to make $700,000, and now thanks to such and such, link to their stuff in the comments. I'm like, yeah, I like that's another generational thing. It's like you have to be a boomer or older to fucking fall for that shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
No way that you should be allowed online if you fall for something like that. Like instant, you should just I don't like
You get your
ban.
internet access pulled. Like,
Yeah, like
Shaw or Telus or Comcast or whatever gets like a blacklist. It's like, okay, these are the boomers who keep clicking on this shit and throwing all their money away.
that's like you just go in the fucking Hall of Fame for stupid if you get scammed by a YouTube comment. Like it's just insane how dumb you have to be to get scammed by a YouTube comment. Like
I actually think that
it
was
is
something we
wild.
talked about offline at one point that spurred the conversation. I thought was really interesting. Hubbard's, where you're just saying it's like the boomer generation because they were not like raised in this environment, so they're much more trusting of like the sources that they find online. I think that's probably like
Well, I think their
that's
like bullshit meter is like
not
tuned to a different like bullshit to
Like a different-
not bullshit ratio, right? They're used to like traditional news, which I mean, say what you want about mainstream media, but like the amount of like garbage to
They're not-
actual information.
yeah, there's
on
not
mainstream
flat
media
out scams constantly or flat out.
It's still higher than online. Like online, there's more truth, but there's way more garbage. Like it's just
Yeah.
there's just such an absolute endless ocean of trash online, and I think boomer brain is just like, oh well, most things you see are going to be reasonably factual, or like at least 10%. It's like online, it's like 0.2% of what you see is like even in the fucking realm of possibility of not being complete trash.
actually, I was thinking about this with like the AIs and how everyone's talking about them giving incorrect information as like hallucinations. And I was thinking, and if you go online and if you read like anything that where somebody is just completely unmoderated ranting, and then you realize humans are way better at hallucinating things that sound plausible but have no basis in reality than AI will ever be.
That's true.
Man, we should check the generation of those two lawyers that fucking quoted false, completely made up legal precedent to the judge, and are gonna get disbarred.
Where was that?
There's some place in the States. There was these two lawyers that were using ChatGPT to get case law,
Oh
and they
my!
found this perfect case for their client, and they quoted it to the judge.
And it was
and
a
then-
hallucination.
It was a complete made up
Yeah.
case that the AI just generated out of thin air. And then the guy's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We didn't check the."
Yeah, we didn't fact check the AI.
He said he assumed that the ChatGPT had access to like law journals or whatever that he didn't.
Well, you deserve to be disbarred over that because you are fucking stupid and should not
God.
represent anybody.
Well, it's
That's
Man, it was only a matter of time until that happened with fucking AI. Like, it was only
That's
a matter
such
of
a
time.
bullshit excuse too, because if they had access to law journals that you didn't, you could still Google it because those law journals want you to buy a subscription to
Yeah,
them.
exactly.
they want to be unfindable. They want to be.
Yeah.
They don't want to generate revenue.
Like, man, being in school and having access to most academic articles through the library system, then you'd find the ones that you didn't have access to, and they are happy to tell you that you only have to pay $800 for a yearly subscription to access that article. Like, you'll know.
Yeah, oh no, man, those lawyers are like the level of like not, like you write an art or you write something from Wikipedia. Like if you're gonna write a academic paper and use Wikipedia, you just like find the source, the actual source.
Yeah, and then
quote
just use that.
right?
Yeah.
Make sure it actually exists like that. It's just negligence at that point. but it's funny. I don't know. I think you're gonna see. I guess that'll be one thing that boomers may be protected against to a degree, just because I think boomers are just not going to use AI, like because
Yeah,
that kind of generation is at like literally at like retirement age at the youngest. They're done. Like the next couple of years, all of them are hitting like the 65 mark, and it's like I just don't see them actually giving a shit enough to get with the times.
yeah. There'll be some that actually will keep working into their 70s, and they might, but it'll be such a like infinitesimally small proportion of them.
What I want to know is how they feel about, like, obviously the late night shows and stuff are all catered towards boomers.
Well, those are on strike right now, so they're probably dead.
Well, I don't know, but I saw a late night show a while ago where they had like a Tucker Carlson clip that I believe was correct, or like a real clip based on how they presented it, but then they like AI face morphed or whatever, inserted a bunch of outrageous things into like the same clip, but like it was really weird because everything in my brain was like, man, if that second part was fake and he made it up as a joke, how am I supposed to trust that the first part wasn't faked in the first place?
Well, it's not like the late night shows have been doing very well and, you know, trying to stay, you know, politically neutral or at least in good fun. Like, it's not like their reputations are in tatters already.
Boomers think when they see that stuff. Do they just think, oh, that tech magic sure has gotten real good? Or that, like, because if I didn't know, like, AI was so good and I didn't catch the part where they were, like, clearly making it out to be a joke, I'd be like, wait, did Tucker Carlson actually say that? Because, I mean, it's at the point where it looks indistinguishable when you use, like, a decent deep fake AI.
I think a lot of people, like, I think there probably will be a bit of a generational divide, but I think the AI stuff is now hitting public consciousness, like, across the board, like, massively.
Yeah, it just weirds me out so much now that when you're watching, like,
based on the percentage of people that don't understand, like, Onion articles or satire, I do worry about it.
Yeah,
like you're watching something, unless you're watching something that claims to be factual, you now don't know for sure whether any of the clips they show are real or not. Like, it just fucked with me on, like, a very deep level when I saw that.
Well, and I agree with you. Like, I think you will have a lot more awareness of, like, the younger generations will just, like, they already see, like, the online world as, like, kind of completely malleable, right, or whatever, like, and it blends in with the real world. I think Gen Z and stuff will be a lot better at just being able to, like, separate that out and be like, okay, this stuff is just
this is the nonsense stuff,
or this is just, like, this is made up, right? Like, this is not real. And then I think you could definitely see boomers constantly
struggling
being
with
taken in by that stuff and just being like, oh man, did you see Tucker Carlson say that, you know, like, all this shit? And it's like, well, did he actually say it? Well, I saw it on such and such. Tucker Carlson was calling for
Tucker Carlson's a bastard.com.
Tucker Carlson was calling for banning My Little Pony or something just totally ridiculous. That was obviously a joke, but they don't know it.
Because like I said, like, you see a lot of, like, random shit, like when Onion articles come out or whatever. You see a lot of, like, random commenters being like, "Did this actually happen? This is outrageous." It's like,
that's true. It's like,
actually.
I would agree with you. I do think it seems like the younger generation will be a little bit more wary of this stuff. Like, they'll understand, like, there's fools in every generation, so obviously you're going to have a lot of the younger generation get sucked in by it too, but especially since it'll be interesting.
Of people running successful OnlyFans and TikToks with entirely AI generated female models.
Yeah, it's just hilarious, but I think that's more of a Gen Z problem. Gen Z,
that's what I'm saying, though.
Yeah.
Like, Gen Z is going to fall for it in that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like for Gen Z, some of it's not even falling for it. It's just, like, accepting it.
True.
Like they're not as worried about like whether or not it's true or like real. Like they're you might be able to. I would say some of them kind of in their heart of hearts know like maybe that the model is literally AI or whatever, and they're still subscribed to our OnlyFans because they don't. I think a lot of like Gen Z
It
is
doesn't
not
matter.
as concerned with. Yeah, they're not as concerned with the authenticity of
Oh
it.
man,
They feel like online is like it's real enough for them or whatever. Like
this is a good point to bring up the whole loneliness thing. Like Gen Z is all just like sitting around on their computers, getting all their social interaction through a screen.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I think if some of that stuff though is just like such self-inflicted wounds, in the sense like Gen Z like or yeah like complain and complain and complain. It's like, but they don't do anything to like. There's like some
Counteract.
pretty easy. Yeah, like there's like go join a sports league or something. Like there's still lots of stuff you can do that's in person that like has.
Oh, yeah,
community.
there's-
It's
Well, I
maybe
mean, like they can, like you can do things, but they aren't. Like,
yes, but there's a lot of like, oh, I wish there was community, and then it's like, well, are you part of any sports or something? No, or do you have like a in-person job? Like there's every single fucking service industry job in the North America is hiring. It's like, yeah, it's a shitty job, but it's better than being unemployed. And you actually there's a sense of community in those jobs. Like it's you're working.
yeah, everyone
there's
else is also hating to be there.
Yeah, well, and
Yeah,
sometimes
you can
it's
sit
fun,
around
like,
and bitch about your boss together. That's fun.
I had tons of fun at my like entry level like minimum wage jobs. Like a lot of them are like fun.
Yeah, and they
Like,
pay $17 an hour now in Canada.
Yeah,
so
like-
it's like you're actually going to make money.
So it's like yes,
And contribute massively to inflation.
There's options, and I agree that they're not all like great options, but a lot of it's kind of like a self-inflicted wound in the sense like it's like don't it's
Well, I mean, then we're going into the other classic Gen Z, who's just all mentally ill.
which I mean to be fair, it seems like it's like kind of shitty parenting on the part of like I guess it would have been boomers and Gen X and a little bit of even millennials.
Yeah, some of the older
Millennials,
ones.
seen moms and such.
Yeah, but it's like that they just
Snowplow and helicopter parents are the terms I've.
What's a snowplow?
Well, they just like plow all the obstacles out of the way for the kid.
Oh,
They just
So,
come in and take care of all of it for the kid instead of like, hey, this is a problem. You should figure it out on your own and learn some skills. Nope, can't do that. I gotta take care of all of it. Otherwise, the kid could possibly into a problem. It's like, no.
yeah,
That's,
that's an interesting generational change with the helicopter parents. Is that everyone perceives people as well? Everyone perceives themselves as much busier, which I believe they are if you look at it. But that hasn't gotten in the way of parenting because, like the Gen, I only saw this one decades, but I think it would be Gen Z versus silent generation parenting methods. Or no, sorry, millennial versus silent generation parenting methods. And like a millennial parent, millennial father spends as much time with their kids as a silent generation mother spent with her kids, and a millennial mother spends almost double the amount of time with kids as a silent generation mother, and the silent generation father spent very little time with their kids.
That's the way to be. Yeah.
But it's
I'm
just,
channeling
even
that.
though like everyone is busier and now like women are expected to have full-time
like,
jobs.
how many hours a week does it take to say I'm not proud of you yet? Really not many hours. Like it's not that hard. Like come on guys, like it's 15 minutes a week you need to spend.
Are you a doctor
Asian
yet? No?
Americans-
Get out. Talk to me
Asian
when.
Americans are
Yeah.
always constantly making fun of themselves, and it's like 90% of their jokes are just that their parents aren't proud of them.
Yeah.
But I think going back to that, I think a lot of it is just like a lack of willingness to let kids be unsupervised with other kids. Like
Yeah, like actually.
Yeah.
there's no like, oh, go out and play with the neighborhood kids anymore. It's like it's all
You ha-
supervised time with the parents and shit. And there's like multiple cases where parents were arrested for letting their kids like
Take
one was
the
like
bus.
riding the bus or whatever into town, and like another one was going. I think some lady let her kid go to the corner store like a couple blocks away, and she got arrested. It's like all this insane shit, and they're like, this was like, I think 9 and 10-year-olds.
Yeah, it's like
That's
Around
just
that age.
unbelievable. It's like, what's the world coming to? In Japan, you see like 6-year-old kids riding the fucking metro to get to school.
To be fair, like Japan's probably safer, but at the same time, like Canada,
it's
Canada,
yeah, it's
whatever,
fucking
is very
Canada.
safe.
Yeah, like
I mean-
well, that's what that was that case with the bus. Is like a Vancouver father, single father. Like he had to work to provide for his kids, and so he trained his kids how to use the Vancouver public transit in BC. And some fucking overly worried person called Child Protective Services or whatever our version is named, and they're like, yeah, if you do this again, like we'll take them away. And so I don't know what the results were, but he sued them because it was like he's like I can't. There's no way I can. Like they can't go to school. If they don't do this, and they can't like.
You just need to
Be a part-
identify as being 16, and then
Yeah, we're not that far off. So
I'm 10, but I identify as 16, so therefore I'm good to go. See ya, buddy.
yeah, and exactly, it was just like okay, well, I guess he can't work, and he has to let them starve. That's a far better solution than the 0.001% chance they're kidnapped.
Well, it's just like even then, it's
Oh,
like,
Well, and I
Let's-
think another thing too that impacts the parenting style a lot is usually now people seem to only have a single kid.
No,
Whereas,
that's
obviously-
not. No, they don't. The family sizes are roughly the same as they were like 50, 60 years ago. Like
There's
it.
not a chance.
Yes, it's
No,
not the
that
same
is-
as 60 years ago. People were using having
I
3
don't-
or 4
I don't think
kids.
that's-
No shot, buddy. No shot.
it's actually no the because this is actually came up in interesting documentary. I think this is probably the one Khan's referring to. Is like it's called the birth gap, and he did research on this. Like I forget the guy's name, and
It's
I think
the Scottish guy.
yeah, if you do look at it, I don't know the exact time frame, but I don't know if it's quite 60 years, but family composition percentages are actually very similar to say 30 and 40 years ago for
Yeah,
sure. And
it's been since about like the 50s or 60s. We're not having like 7 kids anymore.
No, this is
but
just factually. This might be the case in America, but it's absolutely not in Canada because in Canada there's a substantial birth gap between immigrants and Canadians. Like that just couldn't exist if we had the same family dynamics. It's 50 or 60 years.
well,
ago.
no, a lot of people just have 0 kids.
yeah, that's
They
the-
don't
the
have
point
1
is,
kid.
Like say even Japan, like Japan obviously had a huge decline in birth rate, but it was driven primarily by an increase in zero birth
Yeah.
composition versus an actual change in the number of kids. There is like if you go and look at it, it's not like a completely zero change. Like there has been, I think there is a small decline in Japan and Canada and to the US to a lesser extent in large families, but it's not actually like nearly as substantial as like you'd think given the birth
Yeah,
decline.
it's
It's mostly just a rise in people not like in a certain percentage of the population having 0 kids. That is the biggest contributor to the change in
Yeah.
birth rates.
Yeah, exactly. I'm
I
not
mean,
trying to
okay, I'll
argue
grant
that.
you that.
Yeah, I'm not trying to argue
Like,
that
I
it's
don't
like
really care.
we're all.
I'm just gonna say for sure there are definitely way less kids and way smaller families in my small area of Canada. Maybe that doesn't hold up in these big cities, but yeah, you don't see 5 or 6 person families in rural towns anymore.
Yeah, you don't
Maybe
see
in
like the
more
really
rural
big
towns, you see
families that
more.
used to occur in more agrarian cultures,
But,
right? Yeah, like that doesn't happen anymore. And yeah, so
But the point being that even if the family sizes are generally the same when you average it all out, and less people are having families, the end result is that there's just way less kids in society.
That's like yeah, that's for sure. Like the kids to adult ratio is like way different now. That's just, but yeah, I think you have to like really dig into
Quote
the
unquote, the
nitty-gritty.
neighborhood kids, like if I don't know, if family sizes are the same, but there's half the families or whatever, there's still half the neighborhood kids.
yeah,
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think there's just like people way more individual activities too, right? Like people just don't. Yeah, they don't. I don't know. Like people, neighborhoods don't just like go and do a barbecue. I think that's.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that's just like a breakdown in
Societal.
societal trust. Essentially,
Yeah.
like people just don't feel like they're part of a group identity anymore in most Western countries because it's just like the kind of like nationalism kind of died out as being not acceptable. There isn't any ethnic.
Homogeneity
Any,
to kind of latch
well, and
onto for right or
you're not
wrong.
allowed to.
Religion's tough times.
Yeah, religion is gone. Nationalism is kind of dead and gone. Ethnic solidarity or whatever is mostly gone. I guess some minority groups are still kind of like
Yeah, you
that.
definitely
Quote
see it
unquote
in
permitted.
immigrant groups. But
Yeah, like you see, yeah, and you see like Chinatowns and stuff like that. That's like the closest thing I guess you'd see is like the minority enclaves that persist. But so I think that's like the biggest reason that there's a lot less just like group activity and kind of general like willingness to participate, stuff like that.
Yeah, I definitely
Lack of
it would
trust.
like to bring it back to like generational thing. I would guess that is much more pronounced in as you go up to the more and more younger generations. It just gets
yeah, like the
worse.
boomers would have all grown up with relatively decent social trust and communities and stuff.
That's why they fall for YouTube comment scams.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know if that's.
It's a direct causal relationship.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's. I don't know if that's enough of explanatory. I think.
Like I knew a
Hey,
Bill,
I'm just your
we went
classic
to church
social
together.
scientist.
This guy on YouTube's called Bill. He's trustworthy.
It's called
Falling for
Thunderfoot.
falling for YouTube comments is just scam comments. Is just holy.
The one that gets me even worse than the YouTube ones is when the old CRA calls you, but they have an Indian accent, and you can only pay them in Walmart gift cards.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty bad. Actually the one that I've seen that is like mind blowing is the one where like a fake Musk Twitter or whatever, or even people will send their Bitcoin to Musk, quote unquote
Yeah.
Musk, because he promises to double it. Like
Yeah.
there's some guy that sent like 100 Bitcoin when Musk's Twitter got hacked or something.
That one was the least like that. That was the one I blame the least because like his actual Twitter got hacked. It was like Musk and Bill Gates and a few other people.
But still, man.
But it's still awful. But it's like I like you can see where the guy was coming from. But when it's just literally a Twitter account that's not actually Elon Musk without verification and stuff like that.
I guess like imagine how optimistic about the world you have to be to like.
I know.
I envy those people, I guess, to a degree. It's like imagine how just like absolutely head in the clouds you'd have to be to like think that you just someone's gonna give you an extra 200 grand for for some reason. It's like, oh yeah,
That sounds about right.
someone's just gonna double my money for out of the kindness of their heart. Yeah. I get at least at least cynicism hasn't taken taken
Yeah,
over
that was
everyone.
completely destroyed.
Like holy moly. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that splits generationally.
Well, what I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about there's a term for it, like, but basically when America lost faith in its government, and it was right around the end of the Vietnam War, and everyone realized the government had been lying to them, and it's actually mind blowing if true, and they were speaking as though it was true, that before the Vietnam War, when the government in America said something, the general population believed it. And I'm like, I couldn't even imagine believing the government.
Yeah, I
Well,
wonder. I wonder how
like
that
you
would
say
actually.
that,
Like,
but then COVID happened, and literally like 70% of the fucking population was like, "Well, government basically more or less says everything true, and everything they say is like on the money."
Yeah, that's true. COVID was a
Like,
pretty good demonstration that people will say
when
they
they're
don't trust the
scared, yeah,
government.
they'll just default to authority. And it seems
Yeah,
like
but-
probably I don't know. Like that'd be an interesting thing to look at, like generationally, if there is a difference between like trust in
Oh,
government
100%.
for.
100%. I guarantee you boomers are fucking sucking the government, dude. 2x
Yeah.
Gen
Well,
Z.
like definitely it'd be more interesting probably to see like the survey results would obviously be that the boomers like trust the government more. But when push comes to shove, as you're saying with COVID, probably a lot of the younger generations think they trust the government less than
Than
they
they
actually
do.
do trust the government.
Yeah, like I
Yeah.
think they would like that would be my guess is that I think they would actually default to trusting because I think it's just like natural human instinct when like shit hits the fan, people immediately gravitate towards like whatever person is telling them like everything's going to be okay. And
Best example ever is in the USSR after Stalin purged everybody and was convinced Hitler wasn't going to attack, and then Hitler attacked. And it's contentious, but some people think Stalin retreated to his villa, waiting until they couped him and killed him for ruining the USSR. And then they couldn't figure out what to do, and they just all tried to find Stalin desperately. Eventually found him and got him to lead the country because they didn't know what to do without him. It's like he got us into this mess, but he's the only one who can get us out because he's the authority figure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Stalin, the pinnacle of competence and cool under
Yeah.
pressure. Yeah, I don't know. I would definitely say boomers are just more trusting. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess especially if you wrapped in like media to that, like the mainstream media, because
they're
for
still
sure.
raised on a diet of junk from
CNN,
Well, it's like-
Yeah.
CNBC, Fox.
it's pretty clear now. Like the corporate press is in cahoots with the government, and like that. I think like most kind of like younger generation, because they like consume so much of their information online, just realize like mainstream media is it's just a propaganda wing. Even if it's like just they don't explicitly understand it, they just kind of like intuit it. Like, oh
Yeah,
this-
just discount whatever the like CNN, CBC, all of those types of companies say, Fox.
whereas
Even if
like
CBC is only 69% government owned.
yeah, true. Where I definitely think boomers are like much more like, oh yeah, if the government said it, or if the media said, if the mainstream media said it, it's pretty much good as gold. Like it's very good chance it's 100% accurate. Like they wouldn't lie to us. I don't know. They're
No,
Cannot
wait until their
imagine that
pensions
being-
all get fucked.
they would never do that. They would never run out of money. No country's ever run out of money before. That only
They would
happens
just,
in the fairy tales.
They'll just bail it out. Keep the kick the can, and keep the boomers happy.
I don't think the next bailout's going to work. That's the
Well,
problem.
then they'll have to make it bigger.
You just invoke modern monetary theory, and then
You just do whatever it takes to keep the boomers complacent, and that secures you the next election.
yeah, I wonder if there will be like a political shift with like the boomers kind of like going off into retirement and death. Like,
You have to hope so.
like
Well, I don't know if you have to hope so. Like, depends on how radical the younger generation and
It just depends on
millennials
how.
are.
It depends on how negatively you view the current establishment, I guess.
Yeah, it's true. But it's like, it also depends on how much faith you'd have in the next one being any better.
well, but it won't be Gen Z that'll be the
No, sorry,
shake-
Gen Y. It's the millennials.
It'll
They're
be
the big
millennial-
one.
They're a big cohort, and it'll be millennials kids eventually too. That'll be a bigger cohort than Gen
The old
Z.
Gen Alpha. I think
Gen
that's what
Z
it's called.
Yeah, Gen Z is the kids of Gen X kind of and young boomers, right? More or less, right?
Yeah.
And they're a small generation.
Yeah, so they're
Gen X
like,
is a small generation.
yeah, so they'll be generally a pretty small voter block.
I think and millennials will be the ones that I think will. Gen X, I think, unfortunately, will just be. My personal opinion is Gen X is pretty base, but I think they'll have limited kind of influence because they're such a small generation comparatively to.
Yeah, and
boomers
it'll be our
and-
generation, the millennials. Which, probably not great. Deciding things.
Yeah, I wonder. Millennials seem like a pretty hump generation though.
A
Like
pretty
they
what?
they're kind of like half like they're I
Like
guess split
bimodal?
generation. No, like split generation where like I feel like the earliest millennials are way different than the youngest ones. Like
Hmm.
in a way that isn't true for say boomers or maybe even Gen X. Like I feel like because I think there's a ton of like very impactful world events and even technological shifts that happened in like formative years for uh, millennials that like either did or didn't happen. Like I think talking about like say the 2008 financial crisis, if you were kind of a young adult that was like in the job market or already and you were a millennial, because I think yeah you would have been old millennials would have been just like kind of coming out of college in 2008. You're going to be a different type of person than someone who was like born in say the kind of last 3 or 4 years of millennials that would have been still firmly in college when 2008 happened, or even in high school. Some of them would have been in the last few years of high school. They just won't have the same. I feel like there'll be like a fairly substantial like bifurcation of like attitudes towards certain things for that like that age, because that's like the most important age affected by the 2008 financial crisis is like young workers because they
Yeah,
got hit
because
by.
you basically get your lifetime wages are usually a lot worse. Not a
Well, yeah,
lot worse, but they are impacted if you're entering the job market. If you're
they
entering the
got hit
job
the
market,
hardest.
yeah, if you're entering the job market in a recession, it's like statistical analysis show that people who do that have that happen to them, they overall earn less over their lifetime than people who didn't have that happen because like you're a few years behind. So it takes like an additional 2 to 5 years to get your career up and rolling, which is it's not like a huge hit, but it's enough to I think you'll remember it.
I think the problem is like the because you'll always feel behind the
Yeah,
people that were younger than you and older than you, right? Because you'll be in that like trough that was kind of fucked over. So those people will always kind of like because they'll always be making obviously people compared to their peer group, and those people will always be making comparisons to people that are in relative terms ahead of them, right? Like they'll be looking at their peers that were a bit younger than them that came into the job market in like the early 2010s that was a much better job market and who will probably be caught up or ahead of where they are even though they're younger, and that'll forever basically kind of sour their view on things, which I don't know. I don't know if boomers, I'm sure some of the other generations have events like that, but for millennials it's like pretty. I think uh I think the other one too is like social media and smartphones coming in like at a pivotal time in millennial life, and that happened like kind of partway through millennials being adults or not. I think that's like a thing you'll see because like I think all of Gen Z basically grew up with like smartphones being kind of ubiquitous as like
Yeah.
in their childhood, whereas millennials there is a cohort of millennials that were like adults before smartphones were even a thing, and then there's like a chunk that were like in their teens when smartphones started coming in, and I think that'll be like I don't know. I can't remember where I saw it, but someone was saying like their their friend group is in like their mid 30s, and they don't use Uber. It's like just they don't have a bunch of apps. They don't have Uber apps. They don't use Uber Eats. They don't do any of that shit because they were a bit older when smartphones came out, and they don't like it's not like their lifeblood. Whereas like anyone in their probably mid to late 20s now is like just Uber and all that stuff is just
Hey,
the
I
most.
don't. Well, actually, no, I have used Uber twice. I can't even say I don't use Uber. It's a tragedy.
But see, like twice, that's like nothing, right? Like you're probably would be in that more in that bucket of like the less I don't know smartphony group.
Oh, was
But
I going to say? Oh yeah, when like growing up, like I think It was like the very tail end of high school when smartphones were sort of a thing, at least in my school. But growing up, you always think, oh, why don't old people just literally use new technology? Like, it's not that hard. And then, yeah, as you become older, you just all of a sudden realize you have like a 12-year-old computer, and you're like, I don't need a new one.
It's cheapness driving it.
Well, no, it's just like, man, if you don't know what you're missing, like, you don't care, right? Like,
Yeah, it's
I feel
true.
like that probably really influences with a lot of this newer tech stuff. Like, yeah, if you grew up not using it and you got by fine and lived your life, then like there's not a strong impetus to start adopting these things later in life.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I feel like millennials are a bit split, right? Is because like I think there was like a landscape change that happened like right in that. Like, I think Gen Z will be kind of homogenous in there, just like purely like soaked in screens, right?
Yeah,
And there is like a chunk of millennials that really aren't. And I would say it's almost the majority of millennials didn't really have that, right? Because millennials are what, I can't even remember the fucking years, but like they're probably 10 years, like 10 years of millennials that were well into adulthood before smartphones became like the thing.
yeah. It would have been like probably mostly a big college experience using smartphones.
Or, yeah, and that'd be like, it would be a college thing for like the mid to young ones, right? And the
Yeah.
old ones, they would have been like well out of college before like smartphones were like everywhere. And like a lot of like the apps and stuff too, like because what iPhone was like '07, and then it wasn't like really. It took probably 2 or 3 years for like smartphones to be everywhere, or like
Man, I saw a thing on like the first app to crack 1 million downloads or something like that. And it was an app where it displayed a pint of beer on your phone screen, and then you use the accelerometer to look like you were pouring the beer.
I remember that. I remember
Like,
those apps.
Yeah.
and that was like the first app to get 1 million downloads. It's just like a phenomenon.
I remember people doing that with like similar apps with their iPod touches.
Oh
'Cause
yeah.
that was a thing too. Like people don't even remember. Like that was like I guess a millennial thing. It was like MP3
iPods.
players and then iPods and then
Yeah, and
touchscreen
you would
iPod.
have like your cell phone and your
Or
MP3
if you
player.
really want a deep cut, the Zune.
Oh, I had
Uh,
that.
yeah, there's still like a cult following
I
of Zunes.
Yeah, I liked my Zune.
Man,
was
I,
good.
I have an iPod Classic from back in the day, and I was reading that people are now, or at the time, not now, but at the time when the iPod Classic came out, it was cheaper to buy a Classic with a 160 gigabyte hard drive. So they put a hard drive in these bad boys, and they would bust it open, take the hard drive out, reformat it, and put it in a DSLR camera, because it was the cheapest way to buy a 160 gigabyte hard drive was to buy an iPod Classic.
Jesus Christ, 160 gigabytes. That's just like
It's like, man, technology's come so far. It's insane.
It's just the
that's like
memory.
a shitty flash, shitty
Yeah, you
SD
can.
card.
Yeah, you can get a
Yeah.
1 terabyte SD card, which is crazy.
But yeah, that was like, yeah, I don't know. Our age would have been like, yeah, smartphones just coming in, kind of like towards the end of high school type thing. I guess, again, I think Canada is behind and was behind for that. So I bet American generations are kind of a little bit different. And then, yeah, rural places seem to be also a few years lag and kind of in general, which I don't know.
I remember smartphones being a thing in like my area of Canada before data was really a thing, so that you had to hook up to Wi-Fi to do any of the stuff on the internet. Like data was a thing, but it was super expensive, so nobody had it.
Well, that was like the big thing with like iPod touches, right? Is like it was basically an iPhone, but data wasn't really a thing anyway. So it's like, why would you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was just kind of like the iPod Touch was like the device, and like
Yeah,
high
you just
school.
need a little QWERTY keyboard cell phone for calling and texting, and then you'd have your iPod Touch. That's how my
Because,
high school
yeah.
went.
Because it was all like Wi-Fi, right? Everything was Wi-Fi because yeah, data was exorbitant.
Arm and a leg.
Well, it's just crazy how like
And
yeah,
Canada still sucks.
I don't know. Canada's just crazy. Like that's a generational thing too. Just old people just accept the insane prices of like various services because they don't want to barter with the reps. I feel like
Yeah.
that's way more common. Like boomer generation, just like call up Telus and be like, "Oh, it'll be $150 for my cell phone a month. Sounds good. Bye bye."
The amount of people I meet who still pay more than $100 a month, and like they don't even realize it. They're like, "Oh yeah, I got a new phone," and it's I don't know, the iPhone 15 Pro or whatever's out now. I'm like, oh, why'd you get that? Oh, it's free with the plan. It's like, no, it's
No,
not.
no, it is not.
It's like
How
the
much is your
feature's like
plan?
$100.
$220 a month. Oh, okay. There you go.
Now with Telus too, or the big carriers in Canada, you rent the phone for 2 years,
Yeah,
and then
exactly. You don't even
you
get
have
to
to
keep
give
it.
it back after 2 years.
It's a disaster.
But yeah, I think that is a interesting generational thing where it's like the younger generations just I think it's probably like just like the comfortability with like using online 'cause people just like research like, oh, what's the cheapest internet plan, and then like there'll be like some forum post on like Red Flag Deals or Reddit or some random fucking thing saying, oh, this is how you get a cheaper internet bill, and there's like boomers just yeah, or silent generation or
Such a good
whatever.
point. Is like the price comparison. Like boomers, they'll do price comparison by pulling out the flyers and looking at the coupons and the flyer deals.
Or if they're savvy, they'll go on telus.ca or whatever and look at the plan offers, and then they'll compare it to bells.ca, and it's like, yeah, that's not how you get the deals. The deals is you have to like call the rep and you have to like quote the other deal from the other company. It's a big pain in the ass, but it's like,
You can actually
yeah,
get a deal that way. Like, that's
well,
the
it's like
deal. I
saves you like 70, $80 a
But
month
when
a
you're
lot of the time.
the youngin in a group of boomers or even Gen X, and they have any questions about things, then they just always ask you and make you have to look it up on the internet because
Yeah, because they don't know how to
they're
operate
incapable
Google.
of it.
Yeah.
It's like, God forbid it's a question that you have to go to a place like Reddit because they still don't know what Reddit is.
I actually think one of the things that might be like a difference that skews in favor of the boomers, though, it's like it seems like the younger generation does expect all their services for free, like just to have like a lot of their like a lot of things because it's an internet service, it should just be free. And so I think they wind up like
Yes.
becoming over entitled to a lot of that. Where
Until the point where the service no longer exists, I'm not going to pay for it. Once it goes bankrupt, I'll pay for an alternative.
Well, that was like that's the VC era, right?
Yeah.
You use the service funded by VCs. I don't think that's like necessarily I don't feel like boomers even think about any of that stuff.
because they actually don't pay for any of the online shit.
Well, they don't. I don't think boomers pay for. Well, maybe I guess maybe boomers are like more willing to pay for like subscription services than young people. Like, but I feel like the amount
Man,
of
I don't know. There's a lot of young people blowing a lot of money on subscriptions.
maybe yeah, but usually like for young people, the subscription things are so like unnecessarily and not. It's not like
And
it's like
and it's
like
half the
Netflix.
reason they don't know is because they don't know how to pirate things.
No, it's like things that they think are like cool. So they'll have like they'll have their Netflix and they'll have their Amazon Prime or whatever. But the bulk of their payments, they'll be spending like $45 on like Patreon subs, and then they'll have like some other like esoteric
Yeah.
fucking art supports website that like like you support artists, and then there's like some other like crowd-funded fucking medical thing or some other retarded subscription service that fleeces. Oh, the one I've seen it in budgets is carbon credit offsets.
Oh my
Yeah.
And
god.
it's a complete scam industry. I looked into it because I was like, this is weird. It's like these companies that will like they'll like basically they'll like pretend they'll get like these really sketchy carbon credits because they'll say like, oh, we're going to put in scrubbers and such, and it's worth like it's going to offset 200 billion tons of carbon this year, and in
Yeah.
reality it's probably like 200 tons, and then they sell to
Or they just don't
offset your
even
car.
install the scrubbers.
So
God.
it's I've seen people that have like $70 or $80 a month in offsetting their carbon credits, and it's like a complete scam.
And it's
Man, if you pay to offset your
such a
carbon,
graft.
you should just like
You know how
You don't
should offset your
deserve
carbon?
to live.
You should fucking made yourself.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like here's how you can better the environment. Kill yourself.
Yeah, Canada has a fucking service for that. It's
Yeah,
free,
exactly.
It's government funded. It's really
Trudeau
simple.
brought it in to deal with climate change.
Yeah, the MAID system is to help reduce the strain on the healthcare and make sure we're not putting carbon into the atmosphere. Soon
Like,
to come with a mandatory enrollment.
I literally saw someone that was trying to get their budget sorted, and that was one of the things they were absolutely unwilling to budge on was their carbon offset. This is
like,
a mandatory expense.
Do not
It's like bringing
purchase
back the
anything.
tithe.
That actually makes me like. There's got to be a
Man, let's make some.
NFT bit or cryptocurrency that claims to offset carbon.
Oh God, there
Just
has to
blow
be.
up.
You know it.
Like the trifecta of scams. Like, oh my God, it's so crazy that is actually a thing. But yeah, I've seen
Hey,
that.
but at least you get to flaunt your
Man, I should start
morality.
a carbon offset company. I have enough land. I could plant like 100 trees. That's got to be a lot of
You
carbon.
you can say though, you just do what those other companies do and say that you're planting
Just contact the company.
millions.
And then contact the company. And then be like, okay, I'll send you pictures of my property, which has trees on it, and then you guys can say you planted these, and then you give me $2,000 or whatever, $5,000, and it's easy $5,000. They get the pictures, and then they have like a
And they can fleece
you know,
some fucking retard millennial or for $80 a
a
month.
paper trail to you that there's their carbon offset. Like it, that is one of the wildest things I've seen though. And to be fair, like I think boomers they've got the young generation beat on that. I don't think there's many boomers fucking offsetting their carbon with subscriptions.
Again, like there's a very easy way to offset all the carbon that you could
Oh,
possibly produce in your lifetime. It's just having a really short lifetime.
No, it's definitely give some sketchy random company $80 a month, call it a day.
Oh my God. Okay, fuck this podcast. Let's go start this company. We're going to make so much money.
That's the other thing. Then those people, I guarantee you, they go around like their shit don't stink because they're literally getting scammed.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. It's like that, that person is just going to be, every time they're at a party, it's like that meme. It's like, where it's the guy standing off to the side. It's like, they don't know I offset my carbon.
Exactly. And they're just like, it's just so crazy
that's so good.
Yeah, 100%. There's people that sit around, jerk themselves off that they have no carbon imprint because they got scammed. It's like, yeah, you definitely still have a huge carbon impact. I guarantee it. Like,
well, it's like the only people that I respect who actually do want to like reduce their carbon footprint are the people who do the true like kind of commune type living. It's like, okay, you know what? Like I would never live that way myself, but like you believe in it and you're living like in a fucking geodome. Okay, like fair enough.
No, I take intention into account here. Living in a geodome to reduce your carbon footprint, cringe.
Oh, I'm not saying it's not cringe. I'm just saying it's like at least you're like doing like you're actually making a reasonable sacrifice.
You live in a geodome because you want to have low carbon impact. I live in a geodome because I want to be a cult leader. We are not the same.
Like I live in a geodome because it's a vibe,
and I'm broke. It's just a lifestyle forced upon me.
As long as your motivations are not some sort of carbon offset.
Yeah, that
like a nice cob house. That sounds like a vibe. As long as you're not worried about the carbon offset.
Yeah.
I really do think like if you actually give a shit about the carbon stuff, it's like I don't know what to tell you. It's a little weird.
Honestly, if you really do give a shit about the carbon stuff, you should shoot Leonardo DiCaprio in the fucking face.
Become a political assassin. That's like the best way.
Seriously, just shoot a rich person. Like like they just fucking spew out five fucking boats, 2 private jets, a bunch of fucking private islands covered in carbon emitting garbage. Like. Yeah, like.
No, that's my favorite. This is completely off topic, but that is my favorite thing.
Own insignificance.
Yeah, that's true. And that's why they go on crazy rants on social media about stuff to make themselves feel important.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a generational difference in that. I feel like it's one of those ones that unites the generations being narcissistic, and
Yeah.
especially on social media. It has kind of, I guess, surprised me how like seamlessly boomers like slipped into social media and just got with the times of being a narcissistic piece of shit.
Oh man, yeah, social media. That's how you see how deeply it has like wormed its way into or like come out of the deepest parts of the human psyche. Is that it's the one piece of technology boomers picked up and you can't pry out of their hands.
Yeah, immediately.
When they just like use it flawlessly, they're just like insufferable as any Gen Z person on Facebook. Like they really, that is like a generationally uniting thing where just like they're I don't know, it's really hard to like pick out which generation is more cancerous on Twitter. Like they all seem
That's what I was
equally,
gonna say. It's Twitter's where you have the conflicts of generations for
and
sure.
they all contribute their like truly, I think it's on Twitter. It's just numbers, right? Like Gen Z is maybe not as bad because they're not as big. Millennials and Boomers really driving the numbers, so they're the most cancerous, just based on. But per capita cancer, very even. I'd say very, very even. Like
It's a good thing that we're all perfect people here.
I would say that I would be cancer on social media.
Yeah,
I just
it's
don't
one of
use
the.
it. Like I have no illusions that I would be any better.
It's one of the
than
reasons I
average
don't have
person.
it. I know
Don't
I'd be
have
an
any
asshole.
of it. So that is.
I
The
was
one.
very cringed in my early days of using social media.
Yeah.
I realized the error of my ways and no longer use social media.
Yeah, I had to delete Facebook. I was like, when I was early-ish, or like remove Facebook basically in early-ish 20s. Where it's like, okay, I gotta stop. Like, I can't use this. Like, I'm just gonna do something real dumb on here, and gonna live to regret that. So.
Thankfully, even when I had social media, I just didn't use it. So I think I had like, honest to God, maybe 8 posts ever on Facebook before I deleted it.
And I was just too autistic to understand how to use it, and therefore did not use it correctly, and therefore eventually realized I should not use it at all.
I don't know. I don't remember you using Facebook ever. So
Yeah, it was a short-lived thing. It was only a couple of years, and then I was like, wow. I'm looking back on everything I've ever posted on here. I'm just going to delete it and call it good.
yeah, it's a blessing being not interested in social media for whatever reason. It was never my thing, thankfully. Well, do we have any other areas we want to hammer on for generational divide?
We've covered such extensive ground.
Yeah, I don't have much that I can think of at the moment.
Yeah, well, I think call it good then. All right.
Yeah, that's it. We definitely dusted that topic off.
Yeah. This is extremely high quality content. All right, thanks for listening. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.